What is this, Adam? A video with Abby Martin on Piers Morgan not willing to give a condemnation of Hamas? Who could have predicted this?
Who hurt you, Abby? Who hurt you? What happened, Abby?
I do like the title of the video you you crafted here.
Oh yeah, Abby Martin loves Hamas.
Right, right. Okay, so that's interesting. So someone had alerted us to this clip of Abby Martin and Pierce Morgan. So we're gonna watch some of it. We're gonna kind of jump around here for a bit. Kind of an interesting debate here. Now, to be fair to Pierce, in this conversation, the first half of this conversation, which we're gonna skip, where they're talking to Emily Schrader. Pierce is very, very hard on Emily Schrader, taking Abby Martin's side on, attacking Israel and criticizing Israel in terms of the collateral damage and the presumably innocent Palestinians that have been killed by a lot of the bombings and things of that nature. So Pierce seems to be pretty even-handed on this topic. But then, he's like, well, listen, we've been beating up Israel, but like, can we denounce Hamas too? Can't we say that Hamas is also, the bad guy here? And things kind of go off the rails.
Yeah, Pierce seems to have a pretty moderate position. Don't kill innocent people, right?
Yes,
October
right.
7th was wrong because they killed innocent people. Israel is going a bit too far because they're killing too many innocent people. It's like, leave the innocent people out of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then, so after we watch this clip, we're going to watch the CEO of NPR, who used to be, get this, she used to be the CEO of Wikipedia.
No way.
Oh, or rather, God. Wikimedia, the organization that like owns Wikipedia. But she was the CEO of essentially Wikipedia. And so she gave a TED talk last year that, people were bringing up clips of on Twitter. And I watched it and I was like, I wonder if these clips are out of context, right? I was like, maybe they're out of context. Maybe there's something kind of going on here. So I went and I found the whole TED talk. It's only like 15 minutes long. It was last year. And they don't really seem to be out of context. They seem to actually make the context seem worse.
Wow.
In terms
she seems even more woke.
It's not even that. It's that she gives a very weird talk about how truth isn't important or as important as people think it is, which when you're the head of Wikipedia, when you're now the head of NPR, and you kind of say like truth isn't as important as some other things, it's, we'll watch it. Okay. We'll watch it. You tell me, Adam, if I'm being out of line here. Chat will tell me if I'm misrepresenting or something. It sounds pretty bad. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the truth.
Right, right. Okay, let's jump into this.
And if we're talking about the problem in Gaza and how the Palestinians are suffering, you cannot remove Hamas from this equation. Hamas is the group that has been persecuting the Palestinian people as well.
Well, that is true, Abby. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question Hamas has been suppressing and oppressing its own people. I think that they have become increasingly vocal in their desire to cause maximum damage to Israel and to Jewish people. They've said since October the 7th through their official spokesman that they will do this again and again and again. That actually is genocidal rhetoric. If you're pledging to destroy a people in as many numbers as you can, as often as you can, that is a form of genocide, isn't it?
Look, what precipitated even the origin of Hamas? Hamas didn't just grow out of thin air. I mean, it was precipitated by
but what about my question, though?
Decades of brutal occupation and ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, but what about my question?
The question whether or not Hamas is genocidal as in its intent, I disagree. And Emily's saying, look.
Who started it, Sitch? Who started this?
Well, it's so weird because, like, okay, so you can make it the argument, whether you agree with it or not, you can make the argument that, like, well, Hamas only exists because they're only in power because, Israel did bad things. You're like, okay, you can try to make that argument. But that's a separate argument from not even being willing to acknowledge that Hamas is an evil terrorist organization a organization that not only wants to kill innocent Jews, but also is subjugating and destroying life for the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip by, keeping them under their thumb and sucking up all their resources and not, actually trying to build a country or a society that is, prosperous.
Abby would never acknowledge any of that. She would just say it's Israel's fault. Israel did this. Hamas is our perfect angels. They're trying to establish a, first world pro-gay democracy.
Well, but this is why I don't know if Abby's problem is she's just so insanely tribal that she was not willing to do anything. I don't know if there's some weird motivation here, or to me, it seems very indicative of the fact that she actually just does support, it seems like it, that she just does support these sorts of terrorist actions as long as she feels like the people have been properly oppressed. Because you could say everything, you could blame Israel for Hamas 100% and still say that Hamas is bad and wrong and subjugating the Palestinian people, right? You can do both those things.
Sure. I mean, at this point, I suspect Abby Martin might be dating someone in Hamas. So I'm not sure she's a, completely unbiased source here.
Maybe.
Look, Hamas is reacting. They're an armed resistance group trying to fight for their liberation.
Abby, do you
I'm
think
not
Hamas
justifying
is a terrorist
anything that they've
organization?
done. The United States also called Nelson Mandela and the ANC a terrorist organization.
Do you
I think they're an
think
armed
that Hamas
resistance
is a
group trying to
terrorist
fight for the
organization?
liberation of Palestine.
That's so it's like they got it wrong once. They called someone a terrorist wrong once. So every single terrorist designation now is wrong.
Right.
Come on, Abby.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, and also, it probably is fair to call Nelson Mandela's organization a terrorist organization. They were intentionally, targeting civilian.
Okay. Look, so they did. So they have a perfect record. They've never gotten it wrong.
I don't know. That's a good example.
Okay.
Abby,
Touche.
Yeah.
Palestine.
Do you think they're
I'm
a
not going to
terrorist
sit here and give
organization?
an obligatory. Do you think Israel's a terrorist organization?
Of course
Emily?
not.
Do you think Israel's a terrorist
Of course
organization?
not.
Well,
can you answer my question? Do
yeah,
you
let's
think
agree to
Hamas is a
disagree.
terrorist organization?
I already did.
I like to be like, well, are you willing to answer the question? Yes, I am willing to answer the question. Here's the answer. Now it's your turn. You know what? I'm not going to answer the question. Let's change the subject. Okay. Why did she say, I'm not going to give an obligatory thing? This is such a BS statement I hear from a lot of people. They're like, oh, I'm not going to give this obligatory virtue signal. Okay. So the point of asking the question is if you're a person who actually believes and supports, Hamas's action on October 7th, then all your other arguments that have anything to do with about the morality of the situation, we can just dismiss because we can judge that your morals are completely fucked. That's the point of answering the question.
Yeah, your morals are it's okay to take innocent people hostage and murder them for your political ends. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's like,
you're
okay,
a garbage human being.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, if that's your moral consideration, then we don't have to, we don't have to talk to you. We don't have to argue with you. Your morals are totally whacked. We can get someone else, right? That's more reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I already did. Let me explain something.
Do you think that the acts committed on October 7th were legitimate? You think that gang rape, that
do you think
mass
that the acts that Israel did that precipitated
October 7th?
Hang on. Look.
Do you think October 6th, 5th, 4th,
Abby, let me ask you the question which has made me infamous, famous, whatever you want to do. But do you condemn Hamas for what they did on October the 7th?
I'm not going to sit here and give an obligatory condemnation of Hamas.
It was a terrorist attack of appalling magnitude.
Of what I think.
Surely on pure humanity grounds.
Piers, listen.
You cannot watch the devastating murder of 1,200 people and not say it was a despicable terror act and condemn the people who did it.
Look, listen, I'm not going to give an obligatory condemnation of Hamas. What I will do is condemn the policies that precipitate violence. What I will do is condemn the roots of the violence because inevitably you will have blowback when you deny millions of people basic human rights. When they're
Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
Well, she basically just said, of course I'm going to condemn Israel. They started it. As soon as she says, I will condemn the roots, you know what she's saying. You know exactly what she's saying.
Well, I mean, what is even the point of condemning the roots? If you're not willing to condemn the action, then why condemn the roots? Because it sounds like you're saying that the action is justified.
Right? Yeah, that's what she is saying.
Yeah. Okay. It's just such a weird, like, this is so insane. It's so hard to listen. I try to be good faith, Gary. It's so hard to interpret this as anything other than her just simping super hard and for Hamas and actually being totally fine with all those attacks. Like later in this interview, she's even like, well, on October 7th, there were atrocities on both sides. We don't know how many people were actually killed by Israel. Israel was killing its own citizen. Like, it's like, oh my God, really, Abby? Are you for real?
She buys into all of that. She's done videos contesting that any rapes took place on October 7th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I saw a story the other day where it says I think it said around 50 people who survived the festival massacre on October 7th, like the music festival that's right on the border, and a bunch of teenagers, not teenagers, young adults got killed, kidnapped, raped. About 50 people that survived that actually committed suicide.
Because of the shit they saw?
Because of the trauma. Right. And Abby Martin here is like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was Israel that committed the tragedy. Maybe it was Israel that did all these things. Oh, get out of here. Are you fucking for real? Jesus.
This is a perfect impression of Abby Martin, too.
Thank you. I've been practicing all morning, okay, to get that. To nail that.
I'm Abby Martin.
Living under brutal medieval siege and barbaric military occupation, a fascist military occupation in the West Bank. Hamas doesn't govern the West Bank. Look at what Israel has done in the West Bank since October 7th.
You can't condemn Hamas for what they did on October the 7th.
This is not about Hamas.
Well, it's all about Hamas.
I condemn what will beget violence inevitably.
What are you talking
I'm not
about?
going to sit here.
Yeah, how can you say that? It's not about Hamas. Look, if Hamas hadn't done what they did on October 7th, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
No, Adam, you're not understanding. Okay,
that's so insane.
No. Let me spell it out for you. Let me explain it to you. Okay, for you and the other simple-minded people listening.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, good.
Okay.
Thanks. Dumb it down for me, please.
Yeah, let me dumb it down. Okay, for the dummies. All right. Let me use my big brain Abby Martin powers here. When you ask me a direct question and you say, "Hey, do you condemn Hamas killing a bunch of innocent people?" I'm going to say, "Listen, it's not about Hamas." And they say, wait. I'm asking you directly, do you condemn the actions of Hamas? No. You don't understand. It's not about Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
It's about Israel. No. Okay, listen, Abby. Listen, we can talk about Israel. Okay, I swear to God, Abby, we can talk about Israel. You can complain about all the things you think they're doing that are evil or wrong or fascistic in 10 seconds, right? But before we do, right, 10 seconds before we do, will you condemn Hamas killing innocent? It's not about Hamas. Your direct question asking me about Hamas is not about Hamas, Pierce. I don't understand what you don't understand. Why are you so stupid?
It's good. This is good. She's dodging and dipping and weaving and turning and roll. She's in a commando role right now. Oh, that question. No.
She's doing the dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Yeah, exactly.
5 Ds of dodgeball. Yeah?
Exactly.
Here and condemn Hamas. Sit here and condemn Hamas.
The entire war.
I'm sorry?
This entire war has been because of what Hamas did on October the 7th. You could go back
Absolutely
in history.
Not.
You could go
Absolutely
back in
not,
history
Piers.
and you can find arguments on both sides in the last 70 years. Right, I've had the argument many times.
No, because see what you're doing is.
What am I doing?
Look at the other woman on the panel. She's just so gleeful right now. She's like, yes, thank you, Piers. Thank you.
What you're doing is conflating.
It's also this is such a bad PR for the, pro-Palestinian side of things.
Of course.
If, you go on, you can't even condemn this horrific action. What the fuck is Abby Martin even what is her thought process even from a strategic, perspective of having this conversation? It's insane.
Yeah, the normies are going to walk away from this conversation and think, oh, well, I guess, they have it coming.
Yeah, it's what the fuck?
They can't. They're not even sorry about it. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
And pretending like there are two equal sides. Oh, they've just been fighting for decades. There's always reasons on both sides to start the violence. No, that's not true. There's one side that's an occupying, colonizing force that continuously and violently expels and subjugates and brutalizes and terrorizes the other side. They are living under the boot of Israeli authorities, whether you're in Gaza and occupied completely militarily by the outside, or whether you're living under a fascist military dictatorship in the West Bank.
So if you believe,
violence.
Okay,
that is the root of the violence.
Let me ask you this.
75 years
of ethnic
cleansing and apartheid.
All right, I hear you. Let me ask you this.
So if that's the root of the violence, okay, is Israel being bad in the West Bank and Israel, controlling what goes into Gaza, like that's the root of the violence according to Abby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is Israel doing those actions? Did Israel just wake up on the wrong side of the bed one morning and say, you know what? I just want to subjugate the Palestinian people, right? I just feel like they're over there next to us. They seem so like uppity and egotistical. We just need to knock them down a peg, right? We just, they just bother us.
That's in the mind of Abby Martin. I would say the more sensible understanding of the situation is security checkpoints are a lot of money and a pain in the ass to maintain. You only do them because you have security issues, right?
Right.
Like it's not something you're doing for fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it because you're trying to keep people safe, right? Look, we don't have security issues. We don't have security checkpoints all over the United States because we don't have security issues. But if we did, oh man, we'd be erecting those things like crazy. Look, right after September 11th, they put up a bunch of security measures like that. Thank goodness they went away after people, gained some sense. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Israel's not doing these security checkpoints because for fun, for entertainment value. They're doing it because the people in Gaza are planning terrorist attacks all the time. And October 7th is literally proof of that.
Right.
So look, it's a necessity. It's not something they want to do to subjugate the Gazan people.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, if for people to complain like the Israeli government is not allowing, a lot of resources into Gaza, as Gaza shows that they've been taking all the resources, or Hamas shows that they've been taking
tunnels.
Yeah, taking all the resources that they've gotten to turn into military assets to enact terrorist attacks on Israel. It's like, I guess that, kind of justifies it, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, if everybody wanted to hold hands and forget about the past, and we could all move forward, those security checkpoints would go away. And maybe not immediately, obviously, but just like the example of September 11th, like all over. I was in a big city after September 11th. So, I mean, we had all kinds of security issues in parking lots, at airports, like all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, they mellowed out. They're probably still a bit too high at airports, to be honest with you, but I'm sure things would mellow out if the Gazans, stopped giving them reasons to search them.
Sure. Right. Like if, when Israel pulled out all, Israelis from Gaza and said, okay, here, it's up to you to govern, right? And then obviously Hamas, becomes the government in Gaza. And it's like, okay, if for the last 20 years, which is like essentially, 19, 20 years that's been, if Hamas or whatever organization ran Gaza had been like, okay, we're not going to be building tunnels, we're not going to be sending rockets, we're not going to be playing terrorist attacks, we're just going to be trying to build up our infrastructure as much as possible and becoming, a country that people actually want to live in and can, create resources and wealth for its citizens, then guess what? Israel would drop the, embargo, would not be able to, from a global perspective, be able to prevent things from going into Gaza if they showed that that's just, if what they wanted was peace and to just build up their own prosperity. But obviously, from the beginning, that's not been what's going on.
Yeah, if they were building roads and restaurants, no one would have any problem. They'd say, knock yourself out. Let's trade.
Right.
Which is that's what the Abraham Accords were all about. Because a lot of these nations over there, they want to trade. They're like, look, Israel's got a bunch of good stuff.
Right.
Let's stop being enemies. Let's start being friends. The poor Gazan people have kind of been pawns in all of this.
Of course,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now they're just like a pawn of Abby Martin here.
Yep.
If you believe then that Hamas are a armed resistance, as you put it, and they have, presumably then you believe what they did on October the 7th was justified, do you?
I didn't say that. No, absolutely
well,
not.
Wouldn't that be
I'm not sitting here justifying anything.
Isn't the logical extension of your argument? If you believe they're an armed resistance and they are they are doing what they're doing because they are responding to acts of terror by another side, surely you would say that what they did was justified. Or if it's not justified, what is it? You either condemn it or you think it's justified. I don't think you can sit in the middle, can you?
Look, I don't need to sit here and give a condemnation of Hamas. I can explain why Hamas exists. I don't have to support what they did. I don't have to justify or rationalize it.
Yes, so silence in the face of rape as a
person who studies history
is complicity.
You can sit as a person who studies history. Emily, you're doing the exact same thing and you're projecting it on me. Okay, so do you condemn the actions of Israel for killing 13,000 children?
I don't accept that 13,000 children have been killed. That hasn't anything that's been verified.
This is the problem.
But it depends on the context of what's happening. Do I condemn certain actions of the state of Israel?
Palestinians
Absolutely.
Their reality.
Do I think Israel?
Well, then you see we have this shifting of the topic. So,
well, look, it's easy to condemn.
Yeah,
obviously the killing of innocent people. A lot of people will say, war is hell, right? Sometimes collateral damage is the price you have to pay for ridding yourself of a terrorist threat that's on your border, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can still condemn it. I mean, it'd be great if we lived in a world where there was no collateral damage. Sure, I condemn it.
Of course.
Fuck yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too, so that like with Emily, the way that the tactic, I guess, the conversational tactic is not to say, I'm not going to condemn, Israel killing innocent people, or I'm not going to say it's okay for them to do that. The tactic is to say, we don't know if it's actually happening, right? It's to deny that it's even existing. And, which is probably BS, by the way, but it's an interesting thing because it kind of shows you like the philosophical consideration that's being made. For one side, like, even though if it's BS, the philosophical consideration is to deny or downplay the amount of innocent life that's being lost. And the other side is just to say, like, well, I won't even condemn the innocent life lost. Like, it's not even to downplay or deny. At least in this conversation, Abby's obviously both. Denied, and she's just done both in the past. But I just think it's kind of an interesting dichotomy.
It is. Abby's totally triggered, and I mean, Piers is right about what is the middle position? Like, you're either justifying or condemning it. What is the middle position there?
Is that it's all Israel's fault. And even though I'm saying it's Israel's fault, which should imply that it's a bad thing, I'm still not going to condemn it. Okay. How dare you? I have lots of friends in Hamas. I mean, I'm not going to condemn it because, reasons.
If you're saying, if you're saying it's Israel's fault, you are literally presenting that as a justification for what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So, you are justifying it.
Yeah, it's not good. But anyway, let's jump ahead a little bit.
Things that I don't even know what happened.
What about the atrocities which Hamas recorded and filmed themselves and then posted to the world to brazenly boast about what they were doing? What about that?
Look, nothing that Hamas did on October 7th compares to what Israel has done in response.
I'm asking you a direct question about the fact that they boasted about the mass murder they were committing.
You guys just make it all about October 7th, and that's what I'm saying. It all
was it like if. By the way, up until this, like for the first 15 minutes of the conversation, it was basically like, Emily was on the defensive, a lot of attacking Israel, which makes sense, obviously. October 7th was on October 7th, and people were talking about what's been going on since then. And it's so weird because if Abby had just said, yes, Hamas sucks and is evil, and they're subjugating their own people, and they're, completely wrong for October 7th, blah, 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 then it would have been like a 20-second clip, and then the conversation would have moved on to, criticizing Israel again, right? But because she's just so weirdly hesitant to denounce Hamas, it's like the entire conversation becomes about that at that point.
Yeah, it's great. Piers is like, yes, invite this woman on again. Get her back.
Yes,
she's
I mean,
insane.
it really, to me, like it's almost can almost be no explanation other than the fact that she just agrees with Hamas's actions, but doesn't want to say it so directly because she knows how bad that would look if she did.
That's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems pretty obvious.
Pales in comparison, Piers.
But if you can't condemn anything Hamas has done.
Whataboutism alert, by the way.
Yeah.
Happened. I already said.
You haven't condemned them.
Killing civilians is wrong.
So what
killing
they did,
civilians is wrong.
So what Hamas did on October 7th was wrong.
What does that make what Israel has done?
Hang on, I'm trying to unpick your argument. So if it's wrong to kill civilians, were Hamas wrong to do what they did on October the 7th, given how many civilians were brutally murdered?
Are you doing the same thing to Emily? And if not,
just asking,
why?
Do you think it was wrong?
Why are you not sitting her?
Do you think?
What about Emily?
Dad, why are you picking on me? What about sister? Pick on sister a little bit, Dad, please.
Well, we picked on her for 25 minutes. It's your turn. You have to answer some questions.
Well, and also actually to be very specific. Now, Pearson talked about, he doesn't point this out, but to be very specific, Abby's saying it's wrong to kill civilians and then trying to say, okay, well, is it wrong what Hamas did? It's actually very important consideration because, as we've learned from Second Thought and his psychopaths, that Hassan supports, there are lots of people that consider every Israeli citizen as not a civilian. They all consider them as evil colonial settlers and thus up for grabs. So if you believe that, you could very sneakily and dishonestly say, oh, I think killing civilians is wrong, but you don't think that Israelis are civilians.
Right. Well, if that's her position, she should just state it.
Well, she'd get in trouble if she did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was wrong.
Is it wrong to kill 13,000
Why
children?
can't you answer a simple question?
Is it wrong to kill 100? I already said it. Piers.
Was it wrong?
I'm not going to sit here. You're basically comparing Hamas to Israel.
No, I'm not comparing anything. You
really
said just now,
yes,
unless I'm mistaken, you just said to me that the killing of innocent civilians is wrong. I then asked you, fairly self-evidently, I think, the question, that in that case, given that Hamas showed us on tape them killing civilians, innocent civilians, on October the 7th, do you accept that was wrong? Yes or no?
You saw the tape?
Yes.
Oh, no. You saw the tape of them killing innocent civilians?
Yes, they literally broadcast it to the world. Yes, we all did.
And so do Israeli soldiers in a
why can't you
fashion.
Forget Israel for a moment.
It's like watching...
Forget Israel for a moment.
It's like watching Nazis.
If it's wrong to kill innocent civilians,
II
Abby...
on social media.
If it's wrong to kill innocent civilians, I'll ask you one more time. You haven't got to answer. Up to you. But viewers are watching this and they know you haven't answered. You think it's wrong to kill innocent...
Listen, Abby, I'm not saying you have to answer this question, but if you don't, everyone watching is going to think you're a Nazi, psychopath, racist, evil person. But you don't have to answer, right? Feel free not to answer.
I can't remember if she answers or not. I don't think she does. I think she dodges the whole thing.
Well, I guess we'll find out. But how can you condemn Israel's actions for killing innocent civilians if you're not willing to condemn Hamas's actions for killing innocent civilians?
She would say because they started it. They're the colonialist power that came in and settled the area and moved all the innocent indigenous people out.
So if someone starts a conflict or their government starts a conflict or their ancestors, 60 plus years ago starts a conflict.
You're responsible.
That justifies, killing, kidnapping, and sexually assaulting innocent civilians that are not responsible for those actions because they're
Abby Martin,
citizens of the country. I mean, that's insane. Say, okay, Abby, do you think it's justified for the Native Americans to start, killing and kidnapping and sexually assaulting, Americans?
She would say yes, of course. Yes.
What about me? My family, came here in the, early 1900s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, far after, the Native Americans had already been subjugated or wiped out far after, slavery. Like, am I responsible just because I'm an American citizen that, other Americans in the past did something wrong? Should I be, physically attacked for that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like, this is crazy.
Are Holocaust survivors allowed to go to Germany and
just start, like lighting people up? Yeah.
Just mowing people down?
Right.
I'm not sure I want to live in this world. So it just sounds awful.
It does.
Wouldn't it be nice if people practice forgiveness? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? We could just move forward. We could move on with our lives.
You don't even, well, first of all, yes, I agree, but you don't even have to practice forgiveness. You just have to practice saying, listen, we can either move forward and try to create a better world for myself and my children, or I can be stuck in a mode of anger and vengeance and self-destruction and not care about my life or the life of my children and just stack up the bodies, to satisfy like blood.
Your bloodlust for revenge.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's not healthy, but a lot of people, it's so sad because a lot of people who really don't have any claim to revenge, right? This is something that happened to their ancestors. They didn't experience it in any way, shape, or form.
Right. They're
the ones who are so desperate to have that claim so that they can just be pieces of shit to everyone. So desperate. I don't like this. Look, get over it, guys. Let's move on. As I can hear the chorus of the left saying, Adam, you have cis heteronormative white privilege. White male privilege. That's easy for you to say.
I already answered. I think it's wrong to kill innocent civilians.
So what Hamas did was wrong.
But wait, they weren't innocent civilians. Look at this long pause.
I'm not going to answer.
Well, let her answer if she wants to.
Look, he's like, she's going to answer. It's going to happen. Just shh. Hold on a second.
I'm going to ask it. So
I already told you I'm not going to sit here and condemn what Hamas did.
Right.
I understand why. I don't have to agree with what Hamas did, right? To understand
that wasn't my question. I just asked you whether the mass murder perpetrated on October the 7th was wrong.
To understand why there's blowback for horrific policies of apartheid and ethnic cleansing. There's obviously inevitably going to be blowback and violence from those policies. Yes, absolutely, it was blowback.
Right, but was it wrong?
100%.
Was it wrong?
I'm not. Look, I don't know how much you want to just go around the mold.
That's a great question because you're asking, is blowback wrong? Like, if you're going to say yes, then look, the Iraq War, perfectly justified. Right. Everything going on in Gaza, perfectly justified.
Sure.
Fucking blowback. What do you expect? Blowback.
Right, just blowback, yeah, sure.
Barry Bush like this.
I think it's a fairly straightforward question. I don't see how anyone can come on a show like this.
What Israel is doing
how can you take part in a debate like this and say killing innocent civilians is wrong, but I'm not going to tell you what Hamas did on October the 7th was wrong? It makes no sense, Abby. No sense.
I'm not going to sit here and condemn Hamas. I'm not going to do the obligatory ritual that everyone is browbeaten into doing. I'm just not going to do it, Piers.
Honestly, I think
doing right now is committing genocide.
I think your denial that what they did was a heinous act of terrorism is actually in its way as bad. I'm about to finish my sentence.
I said atrocities were committed.
Yeah.
And I think atrocities are wrong and killing innocent civilians are wrong.
Oh, look, she's trying to sneak it in there in the wire, under the wire.
Look at that.
Look, I said they were atrocities, and atrocities are obviously wrong. Duh.
There could be something else going on here. I think there's three possible scenarios in my mind. Okay, number one, she fully supports October 7th. Right, it's one possible scenario.
Most likely possibility right there.
Number two is that she's just so debate brain that everything shuts down. Her cognitive functioning just stops working properly. Okay, but here's number three. It's possible that even if she doesn't support the actions of October 7th, she runs in a circle with a lot of people who do. And so she's like terrified of coming out and just directly saying it's wrong because she knows a lot of her supporters and friends and
Hamas
allies will start
boyfriend.
attacking her, right? So that's possible. That's another possible scenario of what's going on here and why this is such a weird interaction.
Yeah.
So look, Hamas were wrong to do it.
You're browbeating me into trying to
I'm
say
just asking
Hamas
for a straightforward answer.
This was a horrific terrorist attack.
Yes, we're browbeating you, trying to admit that a terrorist action that's horrific is wrong, Abby. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Is that a bad thing? That's such a bad thing? Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're trying to browbeat you to admitting this is a horrible thing. Like, what the fuck?
I already answered you.
I think your failure to say that Hamas did something wrong is terrible. I think Emily's failure to accept that 12, 13,000 children have been killed is also terrible, right? I think that the denial going on both sides here, which I hear, is frankly appalling.
First of all, I'm not denying. I'm saying that we don't have the evidence yet of what the numbers are, and we don't know what the breakdown is.
How many do you think it is then?
Look at that. Pierce is such an enlightened centrist.
He is.
I love it. He's like, I'm just trying to be sane. I'm just trying to be rational. Okay. You're both crazy. I'm surrounded by crazy bitches. What's going on here?
That's why, look, this is good content. He knows what's up.
That's funny.
Pierce is taking over YouTube now.
I know. Now I want to go
like,
Okay, this is last part of the clip I want to show you. It's pretty funny.
After 6 weeks, how is that
do you think,
that's a concession
let me ask you this
before I go back to
Emily, let me ask you this, Abby. Do you think Hamas should stay in power at the end of this?
Ooh.
Look, I'm whatever the Palestinians want, that's
what do you think?
That's what they will do. I mean, I think look, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Palestinians of who their leadership should be. What I will say is Hamas isn't actually the most popular faction in Palestinian society. And Hamas
This is so I'm not going to tell the yeah, and I am. Okay, anyone with any sort of sane moral system, if your moral system, your moral philosophy is so fucked that you can't tell people, hey, listen, you probably shouldn't have a government that likes to just murder innocent people and also bring you misery and has no even notion of trying to build up the prosperity of its own people, right? If your moral philosophy can't even say that, can't let you say that, then your moral philosophy is so fundamentally fucked that you should probably just fuck off and never have any of these conversations ever again.
Yeah. Well, she would say it in the context of Israel, that you shouldn't have a government that is going to bring blowback on your people, right?
Well,
it's like an uncontroversial statement, right?
Pierce is about to ask her that very question.
When it's about Israel, right?
Yeah, of course, right.
It's just blowback, Abby.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's very possible and probable that her brain is stuck in the oppressee,
of course, yeah,
leftist lens of garbage. So she literally is just like, oh, she has like the bigotry of low expectations because the Palestinians in her mind are the oppressed. Like they're basically in her mind, they're like animals. They have no free will. They're just, the victims of their environment, while the Israelis are all sitting around, sipping wine in their mansions built on the bones of the Palestinians who have all the agency in the world.
Right. Yeah. They're not capable of forming a functioning government because they're oppressed by Israel. Israel is the one standing in the way.
Right.
Only the result of Israeli policy of brutal apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and occupation. That's why Hamas exists. Any type of Palestinian leadership that has arisen is a direct result of Israeli brutality. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of Palestinians and say what should or should not happen or who they should and should not elect. But I will say that Hamas is a democratically elected leadership of the Gaza Strip. I understand that there will be blowback,
let me ask you one more question.
That inevitably,
should Netanyahu?
I'm surprised she goes with the democratically elected thing because it's first of all that's true-ish. Like they're elected. Well, they were sort of elected like 19 years ago in a very contentious election that caused the West Bank and Gaza to split up because both sides accused the other side of, rigging the votes.
Yeah, election fraud.
Election fraud, and it ended with like them just killing each other essentially and respectively taking over their own, sides of Palestine. But then also like just by saying like, oh, well, they're democratically elected, like then that would actually give moral justification or further moral justification to Israel to just start, bombing the people. Because it's like, well, you voted for this government, right? So fuck you.
Oh, yeah. That's the justification. That's why Emily's smiling so big. She's like, "Ha ha! That's my justification."
Right. So I don't know. I'm surprised to hear her say that, but okay.
Will happen if these policies maintain in place.
Should Netanyahu remain in power in Israel after this?
No.
Oh, hang on.
I think that the Israeli people have spoken about Netanyahu, but I think that Netanyahu is the tip of the iceberg. To blame this all on Netanyahu and his so-called right-wing government is to wash away
should he stay in power,
the foundation of what Israel is.
Should he stay in power after this?
No, he's committing genocide. No.
So you're prepared to say to the Israeli people, no, your leaders should go.
Here's the thing.
But you're not prepared to tell Palestinian people that their leadership should go.
But here's the thing.
Again, the inconsistency.
The Israeli people are...
Okay, so thank you, Pierce brilliantly brings out the inconsistency. What kind of wormy, weaselly, terrible logic will Abby here try to employ? Will she just admit the truth? The truth is that Israel is comprised of white colonial settlers who she thinks has agency, and she thinks the Palestinians are poor, oppressed brown people who have no agency or free will because she's
that's the question. Let's see.
Yeah.
Out in the streets in the tens of thousands saying Netanyahu should go.
There are many Palestinians who want Hamas to go too, I'm sure. The point is, you made a big deal of saying
then have an election.
You made a big deal of saying
have an election.
You made a big deal of
yeah. Look, then have an election. Why won't Hamas have an election? Adam, why won't
Hamas will not allow an election. They kill off anyone who they perceive as a threat to their power.
But that's Israel's fault.
That's Israel's? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's Israel's fault. Yeah.
Saying it's not down to me to tell Palestinian people about their leadership, and then you immediately I give you the open door on Netanyahu. Yeah, absolutely, he should go. Totally inconsistent.
Well, he should be tried at The Hague and put in The Hague. And
that's a different question.
I mean, he's committing
different
genocide.
Question. But you say you can't interfere in Palestinian politics, but you're very prepared to interfere in Israeli politics. Let me ask you, Emily.
Well, because he's committing genocide.
Okay.
He's committing genocide, and he should be tried and thrown in a prison.
It's a matter for international courts. Emily,
I mean, Hamas said they would commit genocide if they had the ability to.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Oh my God. It's a good pause though. Look, we got Abby looking totally crazy.
And Emily looking totally
smug.
This crazy. Thank you, Pierce. Thank you for bringing the most crazy person to sit across from me.
I know. Terrible.
I look sane.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that it?
Okay. That was it for this club.
Okay.
Okay. So let me read some supers and we'll watch the NPR club. Sketch for $5 says rain dances are greater than monarchies. Yeah, did you see there's some crazy flooding going on in where is it? Saudi Arabia? Or yeah, it's in Dubai.
Really? Wow.
Not Saudi Arabia, Dubai. So yeah, and actually so I don't know if it's been 100% confirmed because I think officially the UAE is denying it, but there were reports that very close to right before the flooding started to occur, which is weird, obviously, because in the desert, they do this thing where they try to increase the rainfall because the desert where they do the cloud seeding thing,
right?
And that they might have did it too much. They might have been too effective with their cloud seeding and caused it to flood essentially.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't either, which is interesting.
We should weaponize that. America's great at weaponizing things like this. We'll just rain them out.
Well, first of all, it's funny because there's already articles that are somehow blaming climate change for this, which is kind of silly, especially if it's because of the cloud seeding. But I would be curious because my inclination, and I don't know if this is happening yet, my inclination is a bunch of people who are more conspiracy minded are going to be like, this is why we shouldn't be trying to do any cloud seeding. This is why we shouldn't be trying to, impact the weather whatsoever. When that's actually kind of retarded. You should be trying to, desert climates should be 100% experimenting to try to do this. And obviously finding what is the right balance to create rain in the desert without flooding your city, right? That should be what we're doing. And if this is the cause, and I'm glad that they're doing it not in America so that we can just basically use their experiences to figure out what's best for everyone else, right? This is it's a perfect scenario for us. So if people start whining about, this cloud seeding after this, I'm gonna just roll my eyes it's fucking retarded.
Right.
So
mean.
Yeah.
You're like, let them get flooded out. Then we'll know
Better
the
them than
perfect
me,
amount.
right? Especially if it helps, the cause of all humans worldwide, because we do need going forward. How much better would it be if we could make it so that every place that has awful weather in the world doesn't have awful weather?
Oh, amazing.
That'd be like the ideal scenario.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm down.
So obviously there's going to be like fuck ups along the way.
We
right?
have droughts in California all the time.
Sure. And also I'd be curious as to and I guess we'll see, because they're kind of like denying that it's the cloud seeding, I think officially. But also, apparently the UAE has been doing cloud seeding for the last 30 years. So it's not like they just oh, we just started doing cloud seeding and it caused all these problems, right? It'd be like, oh, something specifically, if it was for cloud seeding, they did something specific to fuck it up this time. So.
Yeah, I've heard this is a relatively old technology, but I honestly don't know how it works.
They put some kind of salt in the clouds or something.
Right. It's particulate matter, so that the condensation condenses around it.
Right, exactly.
And forms raindrops, right?
Yes, you are correct. That's what it does, yeah.
I was going to ask ChatGPT. Go ahead, read a super chat.
A long story short for $2 says, any word from Corey Gill Schuster Ask Project? No, because we haven't asked him yet.
What were we supposed to ask?
If they wanted to come on and talk to us about Israel and Palestine stuff.
Oh, okay.
I'm tasking you with that, Adam.
Well, I am the booker, officially the booker.
Right.
Sitch does more research. I do thumbnails and wormy.
And wormy wrangling.
Right.
Right.
So it technically is my responsibility, so.
We'll get to it, don't worry. But thank you for keep asking. Libertarian Sasquatch for $5 says, as long as leftists perceive you as a victim and you have adequate pigmentation, they will justify any action they take. True. Very true.
So racist. It's funny that they're the party of anti-racism.
Well, and that's sort of the danger. That's what's going on here, is that when we move away from the idea of liberal individualism, we say, okay, well, we're going to judge you as an individual, and we move into the leftist socialist collectivism. We say your actions are based not on you as an individual, but based on people who share your identity. That's how you get into these fucked up, situations the Abby Martin situations.
Right.
Essentially. Because you're saying, oh, well, because you share skin color or ethnicity with someone, your actions are either good or bad based on that fact, as opposed to based on you as an individual. Antonio Cunningham for $10. Thank you. Says, hey now, I'm so glad y'all producing more content. Also, I'm celebrating my birthday by buying some of that sweet free will. Well, happy birthday so much to you, Antonio. And since it's your birthday, we're going to give you some extra. You're going to get 50 free units of free will coming right at you for your birthday, baby.
Yeah, happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday. M8566 for $5 says, I love Sitch and Adam. Such stories. Many centrism, very politics, much comedy show.
Love it. Yeah, thanks.
Lucy Lemonbug, thank you so much, Lucy, for the 5 gifted memberships, despite being a dirty sticker.
Sitch, remember what I said about forgiveness?
Never.
I think it might be time to let it go.
Never. I will never. Fork supremacy, baby. Forks forever. Wow. Come on.
A true supremacist.
That's true.
How disgusting.
PC for $5 says, listen, I can understand why Piers invited Abby onto his show, but can I also morally condemn him for giving Abby a platform?
I don't think so. It is good to see this insanity. It's good to see it up close.
A good emperor for 19 months says Hamas are worse than the Nazis. At least they're ashamed to try to hide it. Hamas are proud of it and broadcast it live. I don't know if it's the Nazis were trying to hide it because they were ashamed, or if it's just that the Nazis were existing in a culture or a global stage where they knew that it would be too damaging to their reputation to hide. Or I guess, Hamas and these other organizations they don't give a fuck about their
It bolsters their
reputation.
reputation.
Or their, among the population, it will bolster. That's true, yeah. So M8566 for $2 says we need an Adam forgiveness emoji. There you
Man,
go.
we got a lot of emojis lined up.
It's true.
We're still working on that Anna one.
That's true. Mitch for $5 Thanks so much. Says I just finished Death Note. You were right, Sitch. It went downhill. And I was sad. Now starting My Hero Academia. Thoughts? Also check out Solo Leveling. Great new anime. I think I watched the first episode of Solo Leveling and I didn't find it that exciting, so I stopped watching it.
Wow. Typical.
My Hero is good. It kind of goes up and down all over the place. It like, you'll see when you watch it, like it starts off like pretty strong and I think it like continues very, 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 very strong. And then it kind of like, I feel like it peaks and it kind of goes down again and then it kind of goes back up again. So, but it's pretty good overall. But I honestly haven't kept up with like the last season, I think. So Mitch for another $5. Thanks so much. As a little something extra for uploading podcasts quickly as of late. Wink, wink. Well, thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, thank CT. She's doing that.
That's right. Liam S. for 21 months says, after years of anti-Republican rhetoric and 6 months of pro-Palestinian TikTok propaganda, how many students would prefer Hamas over Trump in charge? That's actually would be a hilariously interesting poll question.
Yeah, very scary.
It would
I'm terrified of the results of that poll.
I would love for that to be a poll question in college. Would you prefer Donald Trump or Hamas, to be the rulers of America, to be, in charge of America? That's a very interesting question.
Well, obviously, Trump is a threat to democracy. So
right.
Hamas should be good and safe.
There you go. One Abaddon for 23 months. Thank you so much. As Lurker here, just want to say my name is Abby and my sister is Emily.
No way.
Oh, I'm so sorry for you, Abby. Wow, look at this. Your good name is getting dragged through the mud. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Wow.
Terrible. Brian for $20. Thank you so much. Says, I love how the soft bigotry of low expectations were things talked about by conservatives about 24 years ago under Bush, and now everyone finally realizing it as true when we're called racist for saying it. I mean, that is accurate. That is accurate.
Yeah, the left does not process the argument that the right makes about the bigotry of low expectations. It goes into their brain and they just use a racist filter and they say, you are saying brown people are dumb. That's the argument that they think you're making.
Right.
It just goes way over their head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no, I'm saying that you think brown people are dumb.
Right.
Yeah.
Drew Dogman for $5 says, so carbon is bad, but 30 years of cloud seeding is okay. Now I'm thinking climate change might actually be man-made. I'm not sure I understand the connection there. Doesn't having more clouds supposed to reduce the temperature? Like I thought it like reflects sunlight. Right?
Climate change is man-made too, right? I mean, that's why they call it man-made.
Well, that's the argument, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming Drew meant in terms of, actually, yeah, I don't know what the fuck Drew meant. I don't know what carbon having to do. I'm not sure I understand what carbon has to do with cloud seeding. Okay. Jackarama for 20 months says 4 more months. Also, now's a great time to get your passports without paying for anything extra. I got mine in 17 days. A-Team reigns supreme. Well, there you go.
Wow. Because everyone's focused on their taxes or something? Why?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's also a big uptick around holidays and summer. So maybe it's good to do it like spring.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. Well, thanks for reminding us, Jack. Get your passports now. Mega Mikey 75 for $10. Thank you. Says supposedly how cloud seeding works is a plane injects silver iodine into clouds. Water molecules become heavier inside the cloud, which increases precipitation.
Fascinating.
Interesting. Moondoggy for $5 says just want to say Hades 2 gameplay is being shown, and Hecate got witch abs. Lick. Well, I'm excited. Listen, despite the fact that Hades 2 has a girl protagonist, which is just, oh my God. I don't know if I can get over that. Terrible.
Oh God.
Terrible. But I'll still play it. I love Hades. The first game, Hades, is fantastic, so I will definitely be playing Hades 2 whenever it comes out.
Oh, I should play that one? One of these
I don't
days I'll
think
be
you would
able to
like it,
play.
no.
Can't wait to play a video game again. One
I
day
think
when I have
Hades
some
2 would be too
time.
quick for your old man brain. I mean, I don't think you would like.
What are you talking about?
I'm just teasing you.
Look at
Adam
this
was actually
forking around.
I know.
for
When
2
we
months.
we played a little bit of Borderlands, you actually had really good aim in your FPS. So I
This
was
because
impressed.
all I do is play first person shooters. That's
I
like the only,
know.
I love
I
doing
know.
that.
I know.
Placing a little dot on the
On a little guy's head and
screen. Yeah,
blowing him up. Yeah.
come on, it's not hard.
Right. Forking around for 2 months says, I agree, Sitch. Forks are superior to all. True.
Did you change your name to Forking Around just to do that?
I hope so.
That's pretty good.
I hope so. Stellic for $5 says, having more clouds during the day lowers temperatures. Having more clouds during the night raises temperatures. Oh, interesting. Oh, is it because
Because it
does the
holds
heat bounce off
heat
the
in.
ground into the clouds or something?
The heat, the clouds insulates the ground, and
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
less heat escapes to space. The clouds catches that heat
Right.
during the
well,
day.
I mean, if they want to,
the heat is coming in from the sun, so it shades.
right.
There is I saw a documentary on global dimming, which was really interesting. Evidently, a lot of climate changes a lot of global warming is prevented from the condensation trails of air traffic, because it
Really?
basically puts a bunch of artificial cloud cover over the United States that keeps the heat out. Yeah. Pretty fascinating.
It would be funny if people are like, oh my God, you got to stop flying because you're putting all that exhaust in the air, but it actually, lowers the temperature more than it raises it because of the contrails, which the people don't like because they think they're chemtrails. That'd be hilarious. That's the true. Death by Sloth for $2 says, to steelman their argument, they think Israel is an abusive husband, and October 7th was the wife finally taking virtuous revenge. The problem is the wife isn't a passive victim who never did nothing. No one's completely innocent. Yeah, that is how they see it. That's true. Dr. Dealer for $2 says, if your moral philosophy is, quote, I justify killing innocent people on a regular basis, feel free to test its effects first on yourself. It's free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Zero Fucks sent us a clip. It's what's his name? Dave Smith was on Piers Morgan. And even though I'm not a big fan of Dave Smith, I do give him credit because he was on Piers Morgan and he was saying it was ridiculous that people just can't denounce, Hamas and these sorts of actions. So,
that's
good for him. Yeah. Okay, let's watch the NPR lady clip.
The NPC clip.
The NPC lady clip, yeah. So, the new update to the NPR story, which we've been talking about for the last few days, is that the guy, Yuri Berliner,
the whistleblower,
he actually resigned from
really?
NPR.
Okay, well, I hadn't known that. So he got a suspension, like a 5-day suspension without pay, and then he just turned around and said, suck my dick. I'm out of here.
Essentially, yeah.
Wow.
His comment, he posted his comment very short on Twitter. I'll read it. He said, I am resigning from NPR, a great American institution where I worked for 25 years. I do not support calls to defund NPR. I respect the integrity of my colleagues and wish for NPR to thrive and do important journalism, but I cannot work in a newsroom where I am disparaged by a new CEO whose divisive views confirm the very problems at NPR I cite in my free press essay. So there you go. See, as I said, when I read her response that he should be really pissed off because she calls him a bigot, he's resigning because she called him a bigot.
Yeah. And will she learn her lesson? Of course not.
Of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you're free to work or resign wherever you want. If I was Yuri, I would not have resigned, I don't think. I think I would have continued to try to work from within to make things better, or at least to be the eyes and ears inside. Though I wouldn't be surprised if also, he's probably getting shut out from doing a lot of things, from the inside. So
yeah, what if they just put you on the the lame
crosswords.
stories. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. So that's possible too. So, so there you go. That's the new update. And actually, again, I've seen a lot of publications talking about this story. Even publications that you would think would want to downplay it are talking about the story and it's somewhat neutral, way, which is kind of interesting.
All right.
Okay, so this is the current CEO of NPR, Catherine Marr. This was from a year ago. This is a TED Talk she gave when she was still the CEO of Wikimedia, the company that owns Wikipedia. Okay. And it's titled What Wikipedia Teaches Us About Balancing Truth and Beliefs. And we're going to jump around. So here we go.
This evening. So as you just heard, my name's Catherine Marr, and I used to be, until very recently, the CEO of the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the organization behind Wikipedia. And my tenure coincided with a very strange time for information, a global crisis of fake news and disinformation, which meant that our free knowledge movement really sort of stood alone. At the same time, too, we saw a collapse in public trust around the world in many of our critical civic institutions. And one of the reasons for this collapse in public trust in things like public science and an independent free press, and even perhaps in the idea of democracy itself, is that people around the globe are increasingly skeptical about the ability of these institutions to respond to our future challenges and changing needs. And yet, during this time.
So it's kind of interesting to me because it's true. Obviously, there has been a collapse in trust in institutions, news institutions, government institutions, all these sorts of things. But she fails, I think, to understand why.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the reason is there's just no trust. Everyone feels like things have become so ideologically biased in one direction or another, and that the other side has basically become completely evil. That's why there's like been this complete breakdown in this trust of these institutions. These institutions are not seen as neutral arbiters of truth, neutral arbiters trying to figure out what is true and what is false. And that to me is why there's been such a breakdown. And that should be what NPR and Wikipedia should be doing. And the reason, or I should say that because she doesn't identify that, I think is very important to the conversation and her perception of the, solving the issue.
Yeah, the purpose of the institution needs to be explicit here. Like different institutions have different goals. And she's saying, the people have lost faith in the institutions to provide for their needs. Well, if the purpose of the institution of the news is to bring the facts, tell the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the institution is not providing the truth, then obviously they're going to lose faith in that institution. So it's kind of ironic. You had said, and this talk is even called balancing truth and belief. It's like,
right.
There's this thing called science. There's this thing called, objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen this, so I don't exactly know where she's going to go with it. But the idea behind science and objectivity is that there is some fundamental truth that we can all agree on, and those institutions should be designed to find that.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
It's a real article on Wikipedia. But what about the hard things, the places where we are prone to disagreement, say politics and religion? Well, as it turns out, not only does Wikipedia's model work there, it actually works really well. Because in our normal lives, these contentious conversations tend to erupt over disagreement about what the truth actually is.
So look, if she's saying the Wikipedia model, as in editors come in and change it on the fly, and then some editor tends to take over and squat on the page and lock it down for all eternity. Like, how is that the Wikipedia model does not work on political pages at all? So
no. Well, the problem is like, I feel like when there is open kind of debate back and forth, it does seem to work, but the problem is what you're saying is that there'd be these upper level mods who are completely biased, who will lock the page down and squat on it, and they completely use their bias completely controls the page after that point.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know, like, even like way back in the day, you know, I used to give money to Wikipedia because I appreciate what they did. And then it was, back in the Gamergate days when they refused to have a neutral article on Gamergate that would just say, like, this is all I wanted. All I wanted was it to say, people who are proponents of Gamergate say Gamergate is about, XYZ. People that don't like Gamergate say it's about, ABC, right? That's all I had to do. All I had to just explain in a very neutral terms what each side viewed it to be, right? And let the reader, make up their mind about one way or the other. And I think that's how these political contentious Wikipedia articles should be structured. Here's what one side says, here's what the other side says. We're not going to tell you what's true. And they flatly refuse to do that on Wikipedia. They said, no, Gamergate is a harassment campaign. It's literally right now, if you look up Gamergate on Wikipedia, it says Gamergate parentheses harassment campaign.
They have the same bullshit with Comicsgate. Some of the Comicsgate people tried to get the Comicsgate page changed, and
they refused.
We've had Lauren Southern on. Lauren Southern has talked about this, like someone squatting on her page, and it's completely ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You get some, piece of shit, ultra leftist, moderator at Wikipedia
who's never had a job, never will have a job, is going to be in front of a computer for the rest of their goddamn life. Yeah.
Right. Who's basically been given this power over it, and they just refuse to not let their political bias control the situation. So.
Yeah. Elon Musk is trying to deal with that with the community notes situation, because community notes is kind of like a Wikipedia style thing.
Right.
So I don't think it's impossible, obviously, for Wikipedia to get that bias out, but not with Miss Catherine Marr here. That's not going to happen, right?
Nope.
But the people who write these articles, they're not focused on the truth. They're focused on something else, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years of working with these brilliant folks, I've come to believe that they are onto something, that perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done.
Okay,
Ouch.
So
painful.
On its face, that seems to be a warning flag, right? That maybe she just said, or maybe our reverence of us holding up, truth as this like primary thing to be, seeking, is like standing in the way of progress, right? Now, she did say, to be fair, she said like coming together, make things done. What does that mean, right? But you could say, okay, well, like, what does that mean, right? That could mean something bad. That could mean something good, right? We're still kind of too vague before we can pass judgment on Catherine here. Now, obviously, we also add to the pot all of her previous tweets that we talked about, which are insanely woke and all about, we need to fight, the systemic oppression of the evil white racist. But
they're different institutions that take on different tasks. And to say that the truth doesn't matter in all those different vocations is just ridiculous. In journalism, truth is the goal. In science, truth is the goal. I would argue in education, truth should be the goal.
Right.
So we're going to just, put the truth off to the side so that we can better educate people? What?
Well,
how does that work?
Exactly. Like,
so we can do better science together? What? How does that work?
When she says truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done, $1 million question is, what common ground and what getting things done are you referring to?
Yes.
Especially if you're talking about Wikipedia. First of all, like, what getting things done are you talking about? Wikipedia is supposed to be an organization that's supposed to present things that are true, right?
Yes.
Like the getting things done is supposed to be true. That's what you're supposed to be getting done, to inform people of what is true. So it
Adding
is a
to the
very
body of
weird
human
statement.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yes, it is a very weird statement.
Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist, nor is it to say that the truth isn't important. Clearly, the search for the truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. But
okay, that's good.
I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. And so in the spirit of that,
what does that what does that statement mean? She just said.
Well, what she means is there are many different beliefs. I don't know why she's calling it truths, but
Clearly the search for truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. We all have different truths, but I think we really have to ask ourselves, one of the things we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience and all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. When she says glorious chronicles, does she just mean like stories and histories?
fiction, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's unclear.
I mean, we would prefer, like, obviously it's not possible, but we would prefer if all history books and all chronicles of all civilizations just said things that were objectively true. Obviously, that, it's not the case because humans are flawed creatures and our histories are very often written by flawed creatures. But I don't know if we should be praising that. That's not something you should be praising, right? It should be like there should be like a flaw of the system.
It depends upon, obviously, if it's fiction, truth is not necessary. If
Sure.
it's history, truth is necessary. So,
well, I would argue you still want, like, obviously fiction is a fantasy, but it should still be, I think, trying to tell people true things about like the human experience and the world.
well, okay.
Right.
I mean, I don't think you have to. I don't think it's like a necessity. The point of fiction is ultimately to entertain. So,
sure, but I don't think it's useful. Obviously, people should be allowed to do whatever they want in terms of free speech, but I don't think it's useful for people to write fictional stories that are, say, promoting ideas about the world that are completely wrong, that are completely destructive, that will lead things to ruin. I don't think that's useful. Like,
okay.
Like I don't think it's useful for people to write fictional books about how awesome communism is, right?
But I think they can, though.
No, they can.
Probably.
Right. It's free speech. I'm just saying I don't think it's useful.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it glorious.
I think people should be able to write, obviously, fiction about whatever they want, even if it's crazy, insane stuff. So, because you don't know, you never know. Like, it's all about, feeling out. I make a huge separation between art and like the sciences. It's just, yeah, one is focused on entertainment, one is focused on adding to the body of human knowledge, right? And
Right.
look, there can be some overlap around the edges, but
okay.
I'm certain that the truth exists for you and probably for the person sitting next to you. But this may not be the same truth. This is because the truth of the matter is very often, for many people, what happens when we merge facts about the world with our beliefs about the world. So we all have different truths. They're based.
Go ahead.
No, you tell me.
Well, look, it's a giant problem, and I've said this before. It's
right.
What people believe the facts are, oftentimes dictates what their beliefs. So you can't really separate the two. If you present someone with a certain fact pattern, they're going to come to conclusions about the world, right?
Right.
So you have to take that into account. And to say that, oh, well, one person can have a particular fact pattern and another person can have a different fact pattern that are completely contradictory to one another. Well, one of those fact patterns is actually true. It exists in the real world. Right. And we should be trying to find what that fact pattern is and basing our beliefs on that. A lot of people do it backwards. A lot of people are like, look, I have this belief that I'm comfortable with, so let me go and find facts that bolster that belief, right?
Exactly.
The classic crime is caused by poverty, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some truth to that. There's a truth claim there that we should investigate. We need facts to investigate that truth claim. Go ahead.
This all to me reeks of like fake high-minded word salady gobbledygook nonsense. Like, let me redefine words in ways to make bullshit arguments that are actually like very pernicious and destructive. Because she's using the word truth in this weird way. Because what you're saying is true. Like, people have a belief system and then they look for facts to essentially justify that belief system. And so we talk about truth. And this is part of why I did not like Jordan Peterson's position in the 4-hour Sam Harris conversation about truth. Truth implies that something is factually correct. That is what the word means, right? And that's why it's like, okay, if you want to come up with some concept, something that talks about metaphorical truth or whatever, fine, be my guest. But you have to separate it from just saying truth. And here, she's using the word true in this like kind of bullshitty, leftist way of like, well, what is your truth? I don't give a shit what is your truth. You can say what is your opinion. You can say what is your perspective. But why the fuck do they use the word truth? They use that to add legitimacy to someone's opinion and someone's perspective, when it shouldn't necessarily have any legitimacy whatsoever. It's your perspective. We already have a word for it. You don't have to corrupt the word truth for this nefarious purpose.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, this is crazy.
And your organization, as Wikipedia and now as NPR, shouldn't be saying, oh, we're dedicated to finding out people's truths. I don't give a fuck about what everyone's dumb perspective is. Lots of people in the world have really stupid perspectives in the world. That are completely useless. Okay. They're completely useless. I want to hear what your job should be, is to figure out what is factually true so people can actually attempt to use real facts to inform their decisions and opinions about the world. That should be the aspiration and the goal that you're seeking out as this organization.
Yeah, totally. I like the concept of metaphorical truth just because it so clearly delineates the problem here. Mm-hmm. Like, there is a truth of the world, an objective truth that you doesn't care about your beliefs, right? When your beliefs, and many times your untrue beliefs, intersect with the real world, you find out that those beliefs are untrue. So we need to have a way to explain between these conflicting belief systems, and metaphorical truth is just a good example of why these conflicting belief systems evolve, and it explains it in an objective, a shared truth, a scientific truth kind of way. Mm-hmm. So that's why I like the difference. Well, just real quick, the concept of metaphorical truth is the idea that you can believe untrue things that are factually incorrect that will cause you to collaborate more effectively with other people in the same way that she's talking about. She's obviously not using that term, and I don't think she means metaphorical truth. I think she's like doing exactly what you accused her of. She's trying to use truth to give some gravitas to what are just really her opinions or her perspective.
Right. Well, I would kind of simplify the definition of metaphorical truth to just be things that are not true or not necessarily true, but if you believe them, will actually help you in life.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And I agree with you. That is an important concept that we need to have a word for, and I'm fine using metaphorical truth for it. But I just think it's an important distinction that there needs to be a specific word for it that is distinct from just the word truth alone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my only contention.
I agree.
Based on things like where we come from, how we were raised, and how other people perceive us. Now, you and your neighbor, who's probably a reasonable person, they look like a nice person? Yeah, they're probably a reasonable person. You two can probably get together and come to some sort of shared agreement. But what happens when a third person joins the conversation? Or a fourth? Or a fifth? What happens when we try to expand this out to the scale of all 7.8 billion of us? The reality is we are a vast and varied world. And so when we try to use our personal truths to come to conversations around collective decision-making on important issues, we start to run into problems. Because collective decision-making, the sort of thing that we want to do in democratic and open societies, requires that we get together with common understandings about the root of the problem and some assumptions about how we might get out of it.
Which is why it's important that we're not using our, quote, personal truths to make these decisions. That's why it's important that we're supposed to be trying to figure out what is objectively factually true so that we can use that as the basis of our decisions. That's the whole point.
Yes.
But if we're using our personal truths to do this, we end up having conversations about our values and our identity. Because remember, our truths come from where we come from. And then we're focusing on what divides us instead of what we can agree upon. And that allows us to start having conversations about the truth in a way that focuses on what we believe rather than what can be known. And that is a definition that is deeply divisive and harmful. I think about our lack of urgent action on climate change. We've known for a...
And then she immediately starts going into her pet. I checked. So sad.
It's so weird. This is like such nonsense speak. Like this is all like very high-minded rhetoric to justify whatever wacky, position that she wants to justify. That like there's a kind of a thought there, but so clouded in like subterfuge and in the language that she's, using that it's like I feel like 90% of the audience is like, what the fuck is this lady talking about?
Yeah, I agree.
For a very long time now about the negative impacts of man-made carbon in the atmosphere. But that implications of that data challenge our identities, our industries, our communities in ways that have led and created resistance and even disinformation. And the resulting public debates about the truth of climate change have prevented us from taking specific and concrete actions that could mitigate the harms to us around rising seas, increasingly deadly waves of heat and cold, and powerful storm systems.
Okay, so
what is the date on this TED Talk?
2022. June 2022.
Wow, okay. I thought it was this was like 2012.
No. So okay, what she's saying makes no sense in the context of everything she said before, because she was sort of saying like, oh, well, we need to have this, like, we need to understand that, like, she's essentially making the very far left argument. It sounds like that because we can't figure out what is objectively true, we should just throw that concept in like the garbage bin, right, and move forward from like a political perspective. It's not quite what she's saying, but it sounds kind of like the implicit statement, because at first she's like, oh, we can't understand what is true. We all have our personal beliefs of what is true, blah, 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 blah. And then she immediately launches into claiming that climate change is factually true.
Right. Yeah.
I thought everything she's saying up to this point is that we can't figure out what is true, but now her belief system is factually true and not rooted in her identity.
Right.
Or industry or community or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
With such urgent threats ahead of us, we need better ways to get to shared understanding. Fortunately, I've seen how at Wikipedia, we can come to cooperative and productive conversations around disagreement and decision-making without using one shared truth as our baseline.
Okay, so there's two problems here. First of all, the issue with how to deal with climate change, what is factually true is very important, right? If man-made climate change is happening and there's something that we can do to prevent it, then that's the actions we should take. But if it's not happening or it's happening in a way that's different than what we expect, we could either A, the actions we take could make it worse, or B, we could be doing actions that harm us in other ways that are for no reason because it's not actually happening the way we think it's happening.
Yes.
And
yeah.
This, I don't know. This,
depending upon the threat, you take a different strategy.
right.
There's a perfect example. I think it's marmoset monkeys have like a different call for an eagle than they do for a snake or some predator on the ground, because obviously if there's an eagle, you don't want to run up into a tree where you're more likely to get eaten by the eagle, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah, different threats require different responses. It's
Right.
helpful to know what the threat is, right?
Right. Now, she's claiming here that like there's some way that if we all don't agree on what is factually true, we can still come together to do something around these issues. But I'm skeptical of what her solution would be for this.
Well, with climate change, it really a lot of the debate is over what the right thing to do is. I mean,
Right.
everyone is doing like these cost benefit analysis because, I mean, people are pitching wild stuff that could be very damaging to our economy and our lifestyle. So I doubt her truth contains any of that cost benefit analysis. She's probably just, we have to do anything and everything.
We can come to cooperative and productive conversations around disagreement and decision making without using one shared truth as our baseline. Its generous and accommodating approach offers us a practical way to take it down a notch, focusing on something a little less stressful, the best of what can be known right now. And the good news is we can know a lot of things. We have high quality information, facts and data that allow us to do things like track the migration of endangered species or the spread of a pandemic around the world.
It's just like retarded. I don't even know how to say it any other way than saying this is retarded. Because like, okay, the first thing she said I agree with. You have to use the information you have available to you, the best information available to you, to make your decision. That's like the only reasonable thing. Obviously.
Keyword best.
Right. Yeah. But first of all, what is the best information?
Yeah,
you just spent the entire first 7 minutes of this talking about how like truth is relative or something. Number one, but then like it makes no sense. She just spent the whole first part of this talking about like how we all have these different truths. But if you have these different truths, how do you know what the best information is that you're basing all your beliefs off of? Like this, she's completely contradicting everything she said before this statement.
Right. Yeah.
These are useful tools in our toolbox, but they don't necessarily alone change minds or unite disparate views. So how do we do that? We shift from focusing on one key truth to instead finding minimum viable truth. Minimum viable truth means getting it right enough of the time to be useful enough to enough people. It means setting aside our bigger belief systems and not being quite so fussy about perfection. And this idea of minimum...
Hold on, we gotta hear this again. This sounds stupid.
To instead finding minimum viable truth. Minimum viable truth means getting it right enough of the time to be useful enough to enough people. It means setting aside our bigger belief systems and not being quite so fussy about perfection. And this idea of minimum viable truth is actually a tremendously forgiving idea.
Okay, this concept is like, it's kind of true, but also kind of stupid at the same time. Because like, yeah, when you are interacting with people and you're in some group project, you have to try to make a coalition that's working together based on what it believes and knows to be true, or what it thinks it knows to be true at the time. Sure, but it shouldn't be. Okay, this is like a complicated concept that I think it's dangerous that she's playing with. There are things that are true and are how people operate, but they shouldn't be the aspirational goal, if that makes sense. So like, a group of people, by the nature of reality, would be working together in a coalition according to their own personal belief system about how to accomplish the goal productively, right?
Right.
But that shouldn't be the aspiration. The aspiration should be we are working towards what is factually true, even if that's not possible. But you need to have that guiding aspiration at all times, because if your aspiration itself is just we need to come together to operate according to the minimum viable truth, that's going to set you up in a scenario where you're actually going to be very short-sighted, and you're going to be doing things not based on what is true, but you're going to be doing things based on like what is the minimum level that everyone will basically accept, that doesn't offend them, essentially.
Can we use this for drone strikes?
I mean, you could.
The minimal
right?
viable truth. I mean, it is a little messy, but.
And that's a lot of people are criticizing that's basically the tactic Israel is doing right now, right? When they're using these bombings, is using this minimum viable truth. They're like, well, the minimum viable truth is we think, most likely that there's some Hamas person here,
Okay.
Like it's it's weird. It's like to say like it's useful enough. It's useful enough that people will set aside bigger belief systems, which, okay, but that's the problem is like, is Wikipedia creating truth that's useful enough that people are willing to set aside the bigger belief systems? It doesn't seem to be the case, especially in climate change, where it all comes back to the bigger belief system, unfortunately.
All of this is dependent upon an institution that's like a truth-seeking institution. We're having a conversation about epistemology, how we understand what is true. This is not pertinent in situations like constructing a bridge. Well, I guess it is in constructing a bridge, in the fact that you want to take certain factors into consideration, like physics and material strength and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you actually don't. So like the minimum viable truth when constructing a bridge would be, what elements will make it so that we can build this bridge at this moment in time and it will stand, as opposed to the maximum truth, which would be how do we build this bridge so that it will stand for 100 years, right?
Right. So maybe the concept is useful there, but you still have to deal with objective truth.
Right, but I would say it's not useful because you could have a minimum viable truth where you can build a bridge that will collapse in a year.
Right.
Like it's up for a year, but it's like, okay, well, that's not good enough, right?
Yeah, I guess truth is really embedded in every single endeavor.
And you should, and this is
yeah.
I think it's actually incredibly insidious for an organization like Wikipedia or NPR, which is literally supposed to be the entire role of the organization is supposed to be to figure out what is factually true to inform people. That organization's goal should be to be fussy about perfection. That should be the goal. That should be the aspiration.
I agree. Yeah.
Which is one of the things I love about it the most. It recognizes our messy humanity. It acknowledges space for uncertainty, for bias, and for disagreement on our way to the search for the answers.
But that's a lie in regards to Wikipedia and NPR. Wikipedia and NPR are not saying, like, in their articles, we believe based on this information that this is true, but maybe this is also true. Their articles are never in that way. They're always like, this happened, this happened, this happened.
Right. Yeah, our narrative is the truth.
Yeah.
One thing you may not know about Wikipedia is that it actually assumes that we are all biased. Oh, wow. It is the reason that you are not supposed to write articles about yourselves.
Wow. Amazing.
Groundbreaking.
It's also not true, because if the assumption was that we were all biased, then they would be writing articles in ways like Gamergate that are open to say, like, one side believes this and one side believes this. And we'll leave it up to the reader to know their truth. This is all lies, okay? If Wikipedia actually believed in this, they would write articles in that way, where they'd say, here's one side of the argument, here's the other side of the argument. You guys, this is based on the best facts we have at the time. You will let the reader discover their own truth, right? But they don't write any articles like that whatsoever.
Yeah, they present it like a court case. They present the defense and the offense, and you would be the jury.
Right. I love those books. Remember those books when you were a kid? You Be the Jury?
I don't, but
I know, it was after your time.
I'll check it out, though.
Okay, let me jump ahead a little bit.
Is that it is essential that decisions are not just made by those who show up in the room. You have to be intentional about bringing all the voices in. When Wikipedia first started, the majority of its authors were Western white men, which led to some really significant biases and gaps in the types of articles that were written and the slant of those articles. Recognizing this by being intentional about undoing some of these systems that were actively excluding people and doing the hard work of actually rebuilding them so that more people would feel welcome in the conversation, we are now able to have a better reflection of the known world.
All of those articles were completely neutral because they were written by straight white men. and then they kicked all the straight white men out. And guess what happened, Sitch?
Yep.
Guess what happened? They let the bias in.
Yep. Yeah, it's just so, I mean, this is so despicable. I think this woman is a retard. I think she's insanely biased. She has no job being the president of Wikipedia or the president of NPR. This is the kind of like corporate gobbledygook nonsense that these ideologues spew at you to try to make you, like they're like trying to lull you into this, oh, listen, like we care, like what is, finding out what is true. Now let me explain to you for 15 minutes why truth doesn't actually matter. And my truth is really all that matters. My philosophical, ideological truth is all that matters. It's such nonsense. It's such nonsense.
It is.
Terrible.
She wants you to just say it. Sitch, there are 4 lights. Just say it.
There are 5 lights.
More beating.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Okay.
The next piece of this is...
that was it, though.
That's it?
Enough
of her? Okay.
Yeah. So.
She's got that very kind of soothing corporate NPR voice. So I can see why she's like straight out of Central Casting for
she
NPR
is, you're right.
CEO, yeah.
This is NPR here to tell you that behind me you actually see 5 lights. Anyone that sees 4 lights will be tortured until their personal truth reflects our truth.
Right.
This is NPR.
All right.
Terrible.
Great stuff. Yeah. So is there gonna be change at NPR? Doubtful, right?
No chance whatsoever. So
I was watching a bunch of videos this morning where everyone was saying there's no way in hell Trump can win the election.
Mm-hmm.
It's Biden is going to win.
Who was saying
handily. This? I'm not sure of the videos I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just look at my history.
There you go.
You can read a super chat while I look it up.
My Cole for 22 months says 2 more months and I will be shiny in gold. Also, let's get those likes up, people. Thank you, Michael. We can't wait for you to get up to gold so you can know what is true. Make sure that you truth seekers out there who agree with our truths, who know what is true, like we know what is true, hit that like button or you will be flogged.
When we were reading one of the Wikipedia, or not the Wikipedia, one of the NPR articles, they said something to the effect of NPR needs to tell people what to believe. And it just offended me so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we really, Sitch and I don't like telling people what to believe. I could be wrong, believe it or not. Sitch doesn't believe that. Of course, Sitch would never think he was wrong, but
I'm never wrong about anything. I'm right about everything I've ever said, even when I'm wrong.
I like to have some humility, and I think it is possible that I could be wrong about things. So me going out on a limb and telling you what you should believe, I just rubs me the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there are certain things that I do think, okay, well, this is the truth. But I understand that people disagree and they have other beliefs. It's complicated, right?
It's complicated. Sword and Scale, thank you so much for joining the Free Will Seekers. Thank you. What's up, Sword and Scale? Christian Bach for $5 says, finally deleted Twitter, boys. It's just not good for my mental health. Just not worth it anymore. There
Good
you go.
For you.
I think you should have, I mean, maybe if you can't resist temptation, you could have, a Twitter that you only use for messaging as opposed to like messaging people, as opposed to actually looking at like people's timelines and all that stuff. But I know it's too tempting maybe to do that. Fondue for $2 says people laughed at the phrase alternative facts. Yeah, I mean that's basically what this is. Puck971 for $10. Thanks so much. Says I used to intern for local PBS station in New York City, and they were all biased. They really wanted me to be on TV during a pledge drive because I was the token brown guy back then. That's terrible.
That sucks.
That's terrible. Brian for $20. Thank you, Brian. Says she can't distinguish our seek for the truth with our current understanding of the truth. She's saying we should sideline our seeking for the truth in favor of accepting someone's personal understanding of the truth. Yes, and that's insane. That's completely insane. And it's despicable. This was the person that was running Wikipedia, so no wonder Wikipedia's been going in the shitter recently. Well, recently, for years, I should say. Stock for $5 says, isn't it not a bit ironic and amusing to think at this moment that the less favorite movie for a long time was titled An Inconvenient Truth?
That is good.
That's true. That's funny. Red Toa for $10. Thank you so much. Says, what do you guys think about the phrase, quote, the purpose of the system is what it does? I've been hearing it a lot from reactionaries critiquing liberal democracy, and it seems fallacious to me. So I have heard that phrase a lot. And even Jordan Peterson he hasn't said that exact phrase, but he's kind of said it to a degree. I think it's actually a really bad idea. I agree with you. It is fallacious because this is why it's not true. You create a system that's often very small and specific, and it does something, and it can do something well. But then as time goes forward, as society grows, as your business grows, as your company grows, your system that encompasses that business, that school, that society, that government grows to accommodate the growing size and the growing complexity of society. And you build the system not from this top-down perspective, but your systems sort of build from the bottom up. They become these piecemeal things that have to address specific things. And since they're often built in this bottom-up piecemeal way and not a top-down approach, it leads to very often a lot of unintended consequences along the way. And so it doesn't make sense to say that the goal of a system is what it does, because very often the goal becomes lost over time, or because there's all the unintended consequences build up and the system starts doing something that isn't really anyone's goal. What is actually true and what actually makes more sense in a way to conceptualize it is when individual people are in a system and you see a system is producing bad results and people within the system are acting in a bad way, what that means is that the system, whether intentionally or more often than not unintentionally, is basically incentivizing people to do the wrong thing. And you need to go through that system to figure out where that flaw is and then fix it. But that doesn't mean that the system was designed to do that negative consequence.
Yeah, there's going to be errors or spoilage in any system, right? Obviously, our transportation system was designed to get people from place to place. There are a shitload of car accidents, and it kills a bunch of people along the way. So,
right.
Is that the system? That unintended consequence?
Right. Or yeah, exactly. Or even like we can even use like the DEI example. So, and this is why I think people are wrong. Like, so very obviously with the DEI stuff, the goal of the system is that people have this like completely warped philosophical, ideological belief that oh, we live in the super ultra racist society, so we basically need to force diversity hiring into
Right.
specific fields, right?
Right.
Now, in reality, there's a very complicated reason for why there might not be an exact equal proportion of the population, that is representative in every field. And if you try to force it, you're going to end up having the field be filled with people who are probably not up to snuff in terms of actually being, uh, not productive, but like at the level that's required. And so
Right.
that system could end up, if it's a business, it could end up failing. People point to the airlines business in terms of, not being safe, blah, blah, blah. You can say, okay, well, because you basically were shoving people into these positions that are not competent enough to do it in order to meet DEI, therefore things are going to be less safe. Things are going to start falling apart.
Remember when
It's like,
Don
yeah,
Lemon tried to comprehend this
exactly.
and his brain fell out?
Right. But then and this is where, the response, like what the system produces. And James Lindsay, I think, is completely wrong when he kind of falls into this pit here, as he says, oh, okay, well, since, they've used since DI has basically shoved a bunch of non-competent people into these positions, and therefore the quality of the product of airplanes or whatever has been lowered, that must mean that this was some kind of top-down conspiracy to intentionally lower the quality so that, we can ship jobs over to China for some kind of weird communist conspiracy, right? It's like, well, no, that wasn't the goal. The goal of the system was to, match some kind of level of DEI, to match some level of diversity in order to fight racism. And then it just created this unintended consequence down the road.
Right. The side effect is the end of the meritocracy.
Right. The side effect is the poorly produced product at the end of it. Right. That's not the intention. That's the side effect. The intention is to try to, have everything be racially equitable. Right.
Right. What is the intention of the system of instilling in the minority population that society is structured against them and that they will never succeed because of racism?
See, that's not their intention. That's how we understand is the consequence of their action. Their intention is they believe that they're trying to create a society that gets rid of racism, and that the evil people that are standing in that way, they can't come out and just be openly racist. So they do this thing where they apply this, colorblind lens where they say, well, all things are already equal. So if you're not succeeding, it's your fault. We're not going to basically give you any more aid or government assistance, to help you do that. So then their response to that is to say, well, your system of colorblindness isn't working.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking specifically of like the social justice, like critical theory, grievance studies type culture, where they're basically putting this narrative in the world that if you're a quote unquote marginalized person, that the likelihood of you succeeding is pretty low.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, the intention for the people writing these philosophies is that they want to destroy liberalism and replace it with socialism. I mean, they've been pretty,
but that's certainly not
that.
Everybody that subscribes to this philosophy.
No, but that's what. Yeah, but those are two different concepts. There's the intention of the people that created these things, and the intention of the people that are pushing them.
Right.
And so the intention of the people that like created CRT and a lot of these other grievance studies is to pretty explicitly destroy liberalism and replace it with some kind of weird, wacky form of socialism. Now, there are a lot of people that fall into believing and pushing CRT or other ideologies like that because they're ignorant of what the point of these philosophies are, essentially, and what they're trying to actually do.
What is the thinking? What is their goal? They're like, I need to spread the word. I need to wake people up to the fact that there's systemic racism and systemic injustice around every turn. I need to let marginalized people know that they're screwed. What is the goal of that waking people up system?
I would wager that there's probably most of them fall into three categories.
Oh, interesting.
Number one would be that they just believe that they're trying to fight racism and bigotry and injustice. Right. Number two, that they just have a massive sense of white guilt that they're trying to alleviate.
So, but so in part of that thinking though is that making people aware of this is going to make them change it, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So there's going to be some sort of systemic change. We just need to focus people on this problem.
Right. Right. And then number three is that I think a lot of them use this just as a means of a way to basically attack conservatives.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So I think those are kind of like the three primary motivations that these people are kind of operating under. Because I agree, I don't think the majority of people that are pushing this woke stuff that are above the age of like 25 are aware that it's all rooted in like tearing down liberalism and replacing it with socialism. Like the younger people seem to be aware of this because they all listen to these social streamers, but the older people don't get it. You know, Mark Cuban, when he's arguing with Christopher Rufo about DI, it's 100% from a place of ignorance. He has no fucking clue what he's talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I just think it's interesting, and especially in the context of the super chat, because it is interesting that I think so. The system was designed basically to wake people up to this systemic injustice so that it can be changed. And I think the side effect of the system is you're broadcasting to people who you want to get into these positions of power. Like you want there to be more black engineers in the world, right?
Right.
But you're telling them from an early age, oh yeah, the system's totally structured against you. Like if you try to become an engineer, you're going to get fucked by white people. Like it's just pointless. So it completely demotivates all of the people that they want to get into the STEM fields.
Right. But they're doing that out of ignorance and stupidity. That's not their intention.
Right, exactly. It's completely counterproductive. It's like producing a transportation system that has like 95% of the automobiles end up in a car accident, right?
Right.
It's like, what are we doing here?
Well, and actually I think I found a much better example for the whole, like, the quote purpose of a system is what it does and why it's like a really terrible argument for people who are not radical leftists to make, is that argument is the radical leftist argument that they've been making for everything. Because they say, like, look, they'll point to the prison system. And they say, look, there's a disproportionate number of black men in jail. So therefore, the purpose of the system is what it does. Therefore, the purpose of the judicial system in America is to lock up black people.
But look,
that's the argument that the far left has been making. And so it's stupid for people that are not on the far left to adopt that same line of logic to explain everything in the world.
Yeah, I would counter to them that the critical social justice movement is part of that system and probably the most influential part.
Right. But my point is that it's stupid to say the purpose of the judicial system is to lock up black people because there's a disproportionate number of black people being locked up. It's like, well, no, there's a complicated reason for why there's a disproportionate number of black people that are locked up in jail. It's stupid to say like that's the intention of the system. That's basically been the leftist CRT argument regarding why we need, all these judicial reforms, which have actually made the problem worse. But, that's a different story. So.
I know. Oh, man.
So I guess, if you're talking to someone that brings that argument up that's not on the left, that's what I would use an example of them. Say like, oh, so is this the point of, jail just to lock up black people? Because that's the argument. It follows the exact same logic. Brian for $10 says, Sitch being triggered on the left's use of the phrase personal truth is very cathartic.
Oh, yeah.
Happy to help. Stug for $5 says, quote, metaphorical truth I've always thought was a nonsense term since they seem to be better described as, quote, approximate truth, hence true enough. Yeah, well, I mean, whatever term people want to use. It's an important concept. If everyone could just agree on some term,
I don't think a metaphorical truth is a great name for it. I'm partial to things that say what it is. And what it is believing something untrue will give you better life outcomes. That's what's going on. I don't know how to synthesize that down to 2 words just yet.
I got it. We already have a term.
What is
but it
it?
has a sort of a negative connotation. Useful fiction.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Useful fiction is the term, isn't it?
Right. And the reason people don't want to use that term like Jordan Peterson is because useful fiction has like a negative connotation to it. They want something that has a positive connotation to it, like
Right.
metaphorical
Yeah.
truth. So.
Yeah. Useful fiction.
Yep.
I don't know how to get that negative connotation out.
I don't
of
either,
it,
but useful fiction is the most direct,
it is
clear term for it. So
I'm gonna start calling it useful fiction until we get a better term.
Right.
I'm officially switching from metaphorical truth to useful fiction.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go. Britt Cormier for $5 says she's using English words, however, she's not speaking English. LOL.
Yeah,
there you go.
She's speaking corporate speak.
Right. M8566 for $2 says, my truth is that Blunty Fly will never die. There you go.
Hell yeah.
How unfortunate.
Hell yeah.
Nomad for $5 says, this is the most convoluted word salad way to just say someone else has a different opinion than you. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
She's got to sound big and important. She's on the TED stage. They're like, we have to invite her. She's a huge donor.
Chachi McSwack for $20 says, late here, but I love the double standard on genocidal intent. One random quote about Amalek proves it for Israel, but quote, lol, we will genocide the Jews over and over. Doesn't for Hamas, even when it's literally in their charter. True.
So good. So true. Yeah.
Very true. Fondue for $5 says, Sitch makes a good point about conflating of forms of truth. Would it be fair to say material truth as fact and metaphorical truth as principle?
That is how they line up.
Yeah, that is how they line up. But I guess we've both settled on useful fiction as a better term. So
well, even useful fiction plays into what we're always talking about it being aspirational, right? A lot of times these useful fictions, they're impossible to achieve. And the fiction term actually plays into that.
Yeah, that's true. Jay for $20. Thank you, Jay. Says, weren't these the same people that used to lampoon conservatives over truthiness? How is this any different? This is all sophistry. Also, if Wikipedia doesn't need shared truth, why does its articles require sources? I think you actually honed in onto maybe a great rhetorical attack here, is that's really what people on the right and Christopher Rufo should be using to lampoon Catherine Marr, is to just say Catherine Marr supports truthiness. They don't support truth, they support truthiness. And that should be like, throw it back in their face, because you're completely correct. Truthiness was this term that Stephen Colbert came up with to sort of mock, the right wing not, adhering to what is objective truth. And now we literally have the former CEO of NPR, the former CEO of Wikipedia, and the now current CEO of NPR advocating for truthiness, which is highly disturbing.
Yeah, a lot of sophistry going on here too. So props on pointing it out.
Brian for $50. Thank you, Brian, so much. Says, her mindset seems destructive to me. She's basically saying we shouldn't push for the truth. Rather, we should push for just enough truth so that we can bring everyone into the fold. Whatever just enough means and who decides is dangerous to me. That's a good point. And that sounds kind of like what she's saying, because, if we adopted this idea of like, well, you need to just say what is true to bring everyone into the fold, which, by the way, doesn't even make sense, because that's not really what Wikipedia does. But it's what it sounds like she was saying. Like, if everyone thought the world, that the earth was the center of the universe, as they did for many years, and it was like, okay, well, 99% of the people are saying that the sun revolves around the earth, and the one person is like, no, listen, I have some objective true fact that shows that the earth revolves around the sun. Well, under her minimum standard, you'd say, well, we don't care what is actually true from an aspirational level. For us to work together, we must, just adhere to not make waves and to just agree that the sun revolves around the earth.
Yeah. So, shut up, Galileo.
Shut up, Copernicus. Shut up, Galileo. Fondue for $5 says, that's right, Adam. You can say the most terrible things imaginable if you say it in a soft and soothing way. That's very true, unfortunately.
I don't buy it.
That's very true.
Makes it scarier.
Gavatron for $7 Canadian, thanks so much. Says, gentlemen, it is with regret that I must inform you. White women. There you go. There you go.
That's funny. That's funny.
David Puff for 20 months, thank you so much. Says, just felt like using my free super chat. Great show. Thanks for the waterboarding. I touched grass, but it snowed again today.
Well, thanks.
All right. Sorry, it's snowing in April. Jesus. Where I live, it's all hot. So, down in sunny Florida. Jay for $10 says the purpose of a system is what it does is literally the same concept as systemic racism. Great point. If a system has a disparate outcome, then it's because its purpose is to enforce racism. That's a good point. That's a good point. That'd be another thing to throw into someone's face when they say that, if they're not on like the far left, say, oh, so you believe in systemic racism now. Because that is essentially the same thing.
Yeah. Ugh. Ugh.
Nomad for $50. Thank you so much. Says, hey, Sitch, just want to say that your interview on Blocked and Reported was pretty good. Thank you. I especially like the part where you explained your love for Adam and the art involving you two. And if you say it didn't happen, then my truth is bigot. I mean,
what do you mean? I heard that.
I do remember explaining my completely heterosexual yet gay love for Adam on Blocked and Reported.
Look, I was listening to it and I was a little surprised that our gay shipping fan art came up for as long as it did, but whatever.
So, well, Jesse asked people to like send in questions,
right,
about it, and so they did, and that came up. So there you go.
Look, it was awesome. I thought you did a great job in it.
Thank you.
It was
I'm gonna put a link.
Entertaining episode.
I'll put a link in the chat for you guys.
Yeah, and I posted on the community tab too to share it.
So make sure y'all check it out. And thank you, Nomad, for the $50.
Yeah, no, great, very generous super chat, Nomad. Thanks.
Edward Senior for $10 says, have you seen Chris Williamson's conversation with Corey Clark? Mara's reasoning conforms to female academics' plurality belief that truth should positively contribute to society. So I haven't seen that conversation you're talking about, but if that's her position, then that's 100% her believing in critical theory. That's 100%, because that's what critical theory is that truth should have a positive contribution, and as opposed to just being what is true, essentially. So,
and I have seen that conversation with Corey Clark, and it's great, totally great, very smart woman. So,
is it this 5 forbidden truths psychologists refuse to talk about? Dr. Corey Clark.
It's a good, it's a good combo. Nice.
I'll add it to my to listen to list. Fondue for $5 says, I do not like the idea of considering engineering a position of power. It's a position of trust because people need to trust the things they build will work. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
We just all have to get along, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if gravity's going to bring our bridges down. We'll build them right back again.
Mason Jordan for 6 months says, requesting a promotion in rank in the S-Class Army, but even if I don't get it, I'll still blindly follow our Supreme Commander. S-Class is the best class.
Come on, look at that. Give him Brigadier General. Come on.
Whoa. Brigadier General.
Come on.
Let's not get crazy. Okay. Let me bring up the ranks chart. Okay.
Mason, do you know that everyone in A-Team is a Brigadier General?
Let's see. Well, okay, how about this? I'm going to give you, after much consideration of thinking about this for 10 seconds, Mason Jordan. Okay. I'm going to promote you to S-Class Captain. Okay.
Nice. There Captain is good.
Captain's a good rank. Yeah.
I'd take Captain. That's great.
There you go. So congratulations on your promotion, Mason. Cat Branchman for 21 months. Thank you, Cat. Says, what do we do about irreconcilable? I can't speak anymore.
Irreconcilable differences.
Thank you.
That's an easy one.
Can't say that word.
What do? Well, we let the people squat on the Wikipedia pages.
We killed. No. What we do is what I said. It's like with the Gamergate thing. You just have to say, one side says this, one side believes this, the other side says this, the other side believes that. In terms of like talking about the information, I think that's the only way to handle that situation.
They have this system on the ballot initiatives. where they have two separate people write a pros and a cons thing. Why couldn't they just do that on Wikipedia? Why couldn't they just separate the page right down the middle and say, look, someone do the pro side, someone do the con side. You could crowdsource both sides, right?
Right.
Yeah. You make your side, we'll make our side, and fuck you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fuck yous. Fuck yous on making it correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I never thought
that would be a million times better. Go ahead, Sitch.
I'm curious to look up. I never thought they'd even do it. I'm curious as to what like Wikipedia says about like abortion and like these highly contentious political issues.
Oh no!
If they're neutral or if they're like very biased. So
we should do a deep dive on that.
I'm curious. Cat Branchman for $5 says one of those differences is probably more true than the other.
Yes, I agree.
Rex Vecton for $5 says start calling useful fiction tactical inaccuracy. That's a hilarious term.
Oh, that's good.
That's a hilarious term, but it's more confusing. No.
Tactical inaccuracy is.
Yeah, I like.
I mean, it doesn't have a negative connotation to it. I mean, it's tactical.
Does. Tactical inaccuracy sounds like you're pushing propaganda. That's what I think. If you said like this is
really?
tactical inaccuracy, yeah, like you're tactically saying something.
I like having. Look, I'm gonna save that one.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a good. I like it. It's funny. It's a good word. Okay. Dan for $2 says I have an even better word. Cope. There you go. I like it.
Oh.
Cope. The good old fashioned cope. The good old fashioned cope spiral. Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
See you guys later.